the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Richard Raymond Tuite, not guilty of the crime of voluntary manslaughter.
A transient is acquitted of the 1998 stabbing death of Stephanie Crowe. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Barbara Lee Edwards.
And I'm Dominic Garcia in for Carlo Cicchetto.
9 years after being convicted of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Stephanie Crowe, Richard Tuite's second trial ended with his acquittal.
That second trial was ordered in 2011 after a federal appeals court ruled that Tuite didn't get a fair trial the first time. He's now about to be a free man.
We have team coverage of the verdict beginning with CBS News 8's Angie Lee, who was in the courtroom when that verdict was read. Angie?
Yeah, Barbara Lee and Dominic, I was in the courtroom, and to my left was Richard Tuite's sister, Carrie, and to my right was Shannon, Stephanie Crowe's sister. As soon as the verdict was read, both families broke down in tears as the jury clears the 44-year-old man of the brutal slaying of 12-year-old Stephanie Crowe.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Richard Raymond Tuite, not guilty of the crime of voluntary manslaughter in violation of Penal Code Section 192, Subdivision A.
After 9 years behind bars, jurors acquitted Richard Tuite of killing 12-year-old Stephanie Crowe.
We had an outstanding jury, a jury that paid very close attention to the evidence in this case.
In 2004, the mentally ill transient was convicted of voluntary manslaughter, but an appeals court overturned the verdict and ordered a retrial, leading up to today.
Justice prevailed finally.
The 44-year-old, who has served more than half of his 17-year sentence, smiled as the verdict was read.
I am ecstatic today. This has restored my faith in our system and in God more than you guys will ever know.
Stephanie Crowe was found stabbed to death in her bedroom back in January of 1998. Her brother, Michael Crowe, and two friends were initially accused of her murder. Their confessions were later ruled to have been coerced by police.
We were able to address some issues in this case that we did not have the opportunity to address in the last case.
Defense attorney Brad Patton believes two factors led to his client's acquittal: the lack of evidence on just how Tuite physically got into Stephanie Crowe's house,
and the fact that there was a very valid confession made by Josh Treadway in this case, also a confession made by Michael Crowe to one of the probation officers.
Then there's the bloodstain on Tuite's shirt. Patton says jurors only asked to review the testimony of criminologist George Durgin.
That he made the conclusion that he was 100% sure that that was not on there when they collected the shirt.
For Tuite's sister, Carrie Lacone, who has stood by her baby brother all along, today's verdict is answered prayer.
I still feel like I'm having an outer-body experience. The whole thing has been life-altering.
Now, we were not able to speak with Shannon, Stephanie Crowe's sister, regarding today's verdict. She was quickly escorted out of the courtroom. We also contacted the Attorney General's office for comment, but they declined to comment. So it's unclear where the case goes from here. Richard's sister says that her brother, once he is released, he will likely live with his mother and stepfather and is asking for some privacy at this time.
Understandably, you were in the courtroom, as you mentioned, Angie, covering this all day long. It had to be emotional for everybody, people on both sides here.
Yeah, for the family, obviously, but for the jurors, I mean, one by one, when they filed out of there, many of them were overcome with tears, saying that this was one of the hardest decisions they've ever made, and they did not take it lightly.